You've likely felt it, that specific, visceral dread at the thought of a social event. It isn't about the people themselves, but the prospect of navigating an hour of predictable conversation about the weather, weekend plans, or office gossip. Many find themselves mentally mapping the nearest exit before they've even finished their first drink. The goal is simple: return to the quiet comfort of their own space as quickly as possible. To an outside observer, this may look a social defect. Society often applies labels like antisocial or socially awkward, or even aloof to those who step away from the noise. However, psychological research suggests this behavior isn't a sign of a broken personality. Instead, the rejection of small talk often points to a specific way the brain prioritizes information. This social exhaustion is a symptom of a cognitive energy economy that operates differently than the average person's, where the cost of interaction must be weighed against the value of the information being exchanged. To understand this drain, we have to look at the internal state of a high IQ brain the very moment a surface-level conversation begins. These brains have a distinct baseline requirement. They naturally seek depth, meaning, and novel concepts over repetitive information. When forced into predictable chit-chat, this network lacks necessary input to stay active. Without a meaningful challenge, it enters a state of understimulation and boredom. This explains why the same person who remains silent in a large generalized group can suddenly become highly passionate and vocal the moment the conversation shifts to a complex or niche topic. Choosing silence over small talk is an active rejection of communication that lacks a substantive purpose. It is a preservation of mental resources for topics that actually require them. At a gathering, an intelligent observer rarely tries to dominate the room with volume. They typically default to a quiet, observant posture. This is a state known as active observation. It is a high-level skill that links intelligence with acute emotional awareness. While others process the literal speech, the thick wave shown here, the active observer extracts the hidden logic and subtext beneath the surface. This continues as they track subtle tone changes and map out the underlying emotional states of everyone in the room. The observer is managing a massive flow of data that most people in the room completely miss. Managing this environmental data while enduring trivial chatter leads to cognitive fatigue. For the observer, the interaction is a massive waste of energy because the effort to stay present far outweighs the quality of the conversation. After such a heavy expenditure of energy, an empty, quiet space becomes a psychological necessity. A British Journal of Psychology study shows highly intelligent individuals experience less life satisfaction with constant socializing. Their brain requires quiet to file the massive volume of ideas gathered daily. The cognitive capacity meter only replenishes once external input is severed. This need often manifests in physical habits, like taking long walks alone. Wandering alone acts as a trigger for the brain's creative and problem-solving networks. It is a state of high mental productivity rather than loneliness. Stepping away from the crowd creates the distraction-free environment required for the mind to freely wander and connect complex ideas. Choosing a quiet night over a party is a logical response to the demands of a complex internal world. Your brain simply requires depth. If this deep dive into the mind helped you understand your own habits, subscribe to see what our next investigation reveals about the way you think.